If you're not successful this time, do you see yourself running again in 4 years?
No, I don't. No, I don't. I think that will be it. I don't see that at all. I think hopefully we're going to be successful.
Okay, so twice in just the last couple of days, Donald Trump has made a comment like that if he loses this time, that's it, he's not coming back. And I want to talk about it, while bearing in mind that this is hardly the most important thing in the news. I get that. Also, he's a massive liar, so why would you trust what he would say anyway? By the way, back in 2020, he said, if I lose to him, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I will never speak to you again. You'll never see me again. And that really wasn't how it played out, actually. So he's probably lying. But that said, he would be 82 the next time around. And he's not like, there are some 82-year-olds that are like, oh, damn, they're making it work at 82. He's not really that sort of person. I don't know if he's gonna make it to 82. But that said, I know a lot of people, Garrison, that are like, if we can just beat him now, done. We don't have to worry about it anymore. We'll be moving on with our lives. I just find that very hard to believe. I can't imagine that he's just gonna spend more time with Melania over the next 4 years, or really focus on learning what crypto is. I don't see him giving up the reins of the Republican Party, but I have no idea what your prediction is. So what do you think?
Well, I think Donald Trump is a real loser in the technical sense. I don't think that he's won enough to justify holding on to the reins of the Republican Party today. But certainly, if he is a two-time failed presidential candidate, if he had one of the greatest kind of turnovers in 2018, and we saw the same thing happen in 2022, where they thought it was going to be this big red wave, but the candidates that he endorsed lost at the largest margins, often in critical battleground districts. My point is that I don't think that he will be able to stave off the coup against Donald Trump. If he loses in just, 40 or so days, just this November, if he is to lose, it's gonna be very difficult for him to maintain power and control of this party, which I actually think means that this will split into probably two parties. I think we'll see Donald Trump, even if it isn't explicitly two parties, I think you will see kind of a MAGA kind of movement that maintains and runs forward with his ideologies that look at Donald Trump as this really, really important figure. And then you'll see more of that kind of centrist, kind of right of center. I mean, what is the center in America? But my point is that I think that there will be a kind of push for a kind of party that looks like Trump, and one that looks a little bit more like, say, a Kevin McCarthy or a Mike Johnson.
Interesting. Okay, I have a bit of advice for Donald Trump, and I'll give that in a sec. But first, I'm curious what you think about, so do you foresee him still being the head of that, or it's this sort of offshoot kind of MAGA movement being led by some successor? And if that's the case, who do you think that successor is? Because Ron DeSantis has sort of bumbled his way through his first attempt at it, and JD Vance now seems like an utter dud. Do you think it's one of them, or do you think it's someone else?
I think it's probably, there will be plenty of people who will try to kind of take on that large MAGA contingent, right? I don't know if he will be out on the campaign trail, but there was this thing during kind of the early years of the Biden administration where folks would have to kind of make their pilgrimage down to Mar-a-Lago to kiss the ring, right? And kind of meet with Trump and get his endorsement. And I think he will probably set himself up at Mar-a-Lago as this kind of don of influence that if I say, then you get all of the MAGA support that you need, right? Whereas say a Nikki Haley will look like a much more appealing candidate under a Kamala Harris administration, and she'll look like this really smart person who knew what was going on the entire time. And so if I think about who would actually take over, I don't know. I do think that JD Vance is kind of turning a corner from a public opinion perspective on the right. I think that the whole they're eating the cats, they're eating the dogs thing was relatively effective in kind of galvanizing a group of that MAGA base to kind of be around him. I actually noticed that at a JD Vance rally, maybe it was last week, he took questions from reporters, which I thought was a bit strange. But what it did was it allowed for him to stand as the hero and the big bad leftist, lying all the time media to be the villain, and he's able to kind of pit the crowd against the media, against the journalists who he's talking to. And so I could see a world where JD Vance does manage to kind of survive this political moment where he hasn't looked the best and takes on kind of the front runner reins of this kind of MAGA contingent of the party, which would pit him in a really kind of poetic way against the Indian American Nikki Haley.
Yeah, that is interesting. I don't know for sure that that's how it's going to go, but I hope so.
I'm curious who you think will.
Terrible. I think that will take over. I think it should be Mark Robinson. Actually, I think that he is a Trumpian sort of person, and it would make all the sense in the world. I don't know. I would have said Ron DeSantis like a year and a half ago, and that didn't work out. I know he'll try again. I know Ted Cruz has been like he's been hiding in the shadows in a bush for 8 years, waiting for his chance. I don't know. I think it'll be some other awful billionaire. I think is probably who it'll be. I don't know. But really fast, before we move on, I do have a bit of advice for Donald Trump. Because everybody's like, what about 2028 or whatever? And a lot of people would say that Donald Trump has to run again because all he wants is attention. And Trump, I think, internally knows that until the day he dies, he just wants everyone to be paying attention, hanging on his every word. That's what he wants. But I say this to you, Donald Trump, is that really enough? I think you should think bigger. I think you should start recording a couple of town halls with Sean Hannity, put him in a lockbox, some videos, schedule some Truth Social posts and all that. And then if you lose a battle with a Filet-O-Fish or something between now and the next election, still run. Just roll out the videos, run from beyond the grave. You can have people talking about you even after you die. And that may seem crazy, but I think at least 50 million Republicans will still vote for you. And so I think you could do that. And then they could just rerun the videos 4 years later. You could have a stranglehold in this party until you are moldering long in the ground. And so that's my advice to him. When you click the join button and become a tier 2 member, you get access to all of our weekly top 10 lists. What are you waiting for?